when we talk about what we know as a group of people, then it's actually even more complicated than that, because not only do we not know what's possible, we don't know what each other has at all. And that's usually where the sort of miscommunication happens. We think everybody knows the same thing, they don't. We think we know what's possible, we don't. So that causes a great deal of problem. Sometimes we can use models to try to help ourselves understand in a more realistic way how we might see these things. So I'm going to try to do that today. My background is product experience, user experience design. For that, I did all sorts of other kinds of design, just general web building of different kinds. It was kind of a early young coder kind of person. So like I made my first website when I was like 14. So I feel close to web spaces, but I don't think I really understood the product very well. Itself fairly recently. So I started many companies, failed many times, found myself in the consulting world. And in the consulting world, people started talking about models. And I was like, I haven't seen any pictures like this since I was in school. And then I started thinking about how it kind of rounds out our perspective and provides us a common way of understanding things. And I started to see a lot of value in that. First at Don't Panic Labs, Lincoln, and then later at Dynamo here in Omaha. So I credit those folks with really getting me to think in this way. And so I'm trying to understand how products work comprehensively. It's probably not necessary to see this all from the very first day that you start your business or whatever. But when you're refining products, it becomes more and more important. And as you're launching additional products, it becomes even more important. And in terms of just cultivating empathy and a safe space to work, these kinds of ideas are not very useful in creating the space that we need to do the work that we should be doing in order to be doing it to sort of reduce risk and increase the certainty that we are going to find a good place. Usually where it goes wrong is someone tells you where you're going, they don't know, and that's a couple $1 million in a couple of years. That's usually the place that it happens, but not always. There's many places for problems to arise. So I want to start by just trying to suggest that in an elastic sense, we can think about this here as some sort of product. That's a shape, it's some sort of fun. Maybe it's virtual, maybe it's real, we don't know. But it's a product of some sort. And once it gets delivered, it generates experiences, ideally more than one. Otherwise, it's a single-use product of some sort. Maybe we can do better. There's a lot of complexity just on the surface layer here, right? The product itself has a form, it has some sort of function. It does or doesn't do that. You have to get people to order it, probably. On the surface of the experience, they perceive the amount of time between that and its delivery as part of the experience. So all that stuff is sort of part of the surface product experience. But usually, and I would say always, even if we don't really participate in the design process, that we've designed this product to produce value. Whether it's actually creating that value or not is another question, but it was intended to do so. It should be a response to shared pains that we use as research to try to find those pains and understand them at the right levels. And there's an organizational strategy that sort of is strategically refined to deliver some sort of social impact. So usually hit this operational impact as well. So again, take a certain amount of money to make the whole thing work. But that shouldn't be the actual reason why the business exists. To make money, that's not the reason, right? It has to do something else. What that something else is a constraining force on what it is that we do as a business or an organization. So if we can hold space for learning and sharing across all of these environments, we're able to sort of talk about these various themes and revisit them on a regular basis as we need. We can use these spaces as sort of wayfinding tools to hold these things apart and examine them at a higher level. Converging to widen out what's possible and converging to a point of value, and then moving together forward in this space. And sometimes these align with functions, and sometimes they don't exactly. So having this kind of language, this way of seeing it is useful. If you're familiar with kind of some other models of product space, and I will take a quick second here to reference some things, because I tried to consolidate a lot of models and not really invent a new one. But this is kind of a new one, and I'll explain what's the same and what's different about it. So you might notice desirable, feasible, viable. These words come from generally design thinking and the field of innovation. These are ways that you balance in terms of the types of risks that we're examining. So, like, if the product isn't desirable, it's going to become difficult to sell, right? It's going to become difficult to align the value properly to the actual customer and get the workability. If the solution isn't feasible, then we're going to run into a problem in terms of like delivering the value that the customer wants. They want this thing, but we can't actually build it in the way that they want it, so it's never going to give them what they want. You can't succeed that. And then on the viable side, if we can't afford to keep going, it's not sustainable for our customers, for our employees, or for the environment, then it's not really viable. And then on the very left edge, we've added one. And I'll talk about how these align with different initial models in a second. But added organizational strategy, it tends to be a space that specifically designers are not often invited into. But what I find is that they don't explain these things very well. I can't do this very well, and I can't do this very well. And a lot of times, I'm the user researcher when there isn't one. And so, if I don't understand the purpose for the business, the impact we're trying to make, then I'm going to have trouble delivering that effectively. And it's actually constraining the total space that I have to consider. And so, the more they can constrain that space, less I have to research and understand about the world. So it's actually a service to me to have them structure the space in smaller and smaller ways that helps me understand the world. And I would call what my job is designer in that space, mostly facilitation. I'm not driving these decisions. I'm sitting in the room asking questions and helping create documentation so that I know the answers to these things. If there's many possibilities, I might be helping to sort of value them. What's the effort? What's the impact? How do we judge this against something else? Sometimes strategic level. So we may or may not take things off the table. D1 aligned and D2 basically aligned to looking at like the double diamond process, as well as school now. School on the third is basically the triple diamond, also well known in sort of product management frameworks. Words underneath more or less aligned with the triple diamond, so you have to think about this problem space, the solution space, the experience space. It tends to be a little bit different, right? In the triple diamond, mostly the way it gets used is just about like the development bit. It tends to be where we bring in some sort of development resources to build out the thing. Usually in this kind of D2, this feasible efficient car design space, we're doing rapid prototyping. We're trying to make sure that we've aligned to value that's like actually there, so we've properly understood the user problems. This user research space tends to be underutilized. I think a lot of times people get confused between this research and post-deployment research, which is, did we deliver the value we intended to deliver? This is different. This is, who are our users? What jobs are they trying to do? What pains do they have? And how might we solve these problems? What are the affinities between all of these people so that we can say this is what the problem space is that we want to work on. So we're defining the problem space based upon the outcomes for the jobs their customers have, not our outcomes, but their outcomes. A couple of little small layers that are happening in there. A lot of times people think about design as surface, right? Like what it looks like, how pretty it is, what colors used, what design system we use, is it accessible? Those things are all super important, but that's only part of it. There's a structure and a skeleton that matters, and there's actually a format, right? Like we often skip straight to digital solutions, but what is the actual human service that we can deliver before we build any technology? If human can't describe how it's done, a machine is going to have trouble replicating it. You're going to have trouble explaining it. So there are things that you can do that don't necessarily have to do with technology in these spaces to help your risk cut through assumptions. It's obviously quite complex, and this change happens over time across these spaces. So oftentimes things are happening in each of these layers simultaneously, and they relate to each other. It's a really convenient truth that your strategic people over here might try to set up like some milestones for next year, and then you do some research against that, and none of that stuff makes any sense. But we don't want to redo our objectives, so we're just going to run it for a year in the wrong direction. Like that's not how it works. So we have to have ways to solve the communication problems that arise between these different kinds of learnings, because learnings are happening in each of these spaces. It's constant. The salespeople learn things, the marketing people learn things. The marketing people learn things about the value problem that's really valuable to the product people. But oftentimes it doesn't come back across like that. It's like, what is driving the clicks on Facebook? Oh, don't you worry about it. We're just giving you the traffic to us. Well, it matters because the experience they expect that they click through relates to the ad that they clicked on here. And if we want to grow product value, part of it is sharing the same understanding. So again, we have to bring the picture together and make it clear to everyone that this is what we're on. This is where the business live. This is what we're focused on now, and how we're going to both explore a larger surface area and then come together to more on something of specific value that we have tested. And I wanted to give a different view of this, just kind of at the end here. Because I think it's probably small. Right. Because I think it's kind of disingenuous to show it linearly. It's kind of like a spiraling thing that moves forward all the time. So it's like linear in some fashion, but it's also like constantly improving. And so you might be adding new products. The idea that you ever really are stagnant, it's just not necessary, right? Like this is all fully agile, it's all fully emergent, happening now. So if we understand the jobs that we need to do to kind of help people, we understand what roles we're playing in this and how they're blended and who we owe things to. This will make our ability to collaborate more effective and more efficient, and more in alignment with our customers' needs, more in alignment with our organizational objectives, less stressful for those folks who were trying to sort of pull together disparate pieces to make it all make sense, and making clear to people who are delivering what they're delivering, to who, and how well we're doing at that, because that's right here, this valuable experiences, observations, post-deployment research. Valuable impact facilitations to like quarterly goals or whatever. However you manage your milestones, like that's what this stuff is. We have your valuable outcomes, association affinities, right? So like, what are the subset of people? What are the subset of needs? How are we going to talk to them? How are we going to know that? How are we going to tell everybody else about the output that they're trying to get? So are we going to do product findings? How can we format more than one solution to test many different things so that we learn a little bit about three solutions, we can kind of figure out how to bind them together into one thing that works for everyone. So we want to go as wide as possible to come back with some of the most logical point value, the smallest build, and then hand it out to the people who build it, have them build it, deliver it, and then get that feedback. And so this is a machine that should be able to run anywhere, any kind, even yourself. You should be able to use the same model to understand how you do all of these jobs across your own enterprise. It isn't meant to necessarily move from one to the other, but they all are related. Impact drives to the customer could be drives the solutions they might find valuable. The solutions they might find valuable drive the experiences we might deliver, and round and round. So that's it. So questions. It's my first time giving this. I guess for context, I feel a little bit like I'm explaining how the entire world works, which is like a little bit scary and also definitely not true. All models are wrong, some are useful, that kind of thing. I'd love any feedback and or questions.